Hi everyone, welcome back to Untitled Artwork. This episode is the first in a series of videos that we're going to create on how to sell your first 1,000 products, and it's obviously going to be from an artist's perspective. Hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's done.
We've got to turn that into a sticker in WhatsApp.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely.
Make me teeth whiter though. I need to whiten them. The duo.
You don't look good.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh.
What does this sound like?
Sounds like you're scratching your ball
It's a toothbrush.
with your toothbrush. Sorry.
Untitled Artwork. Do ASMR.
I've got a list of topics that we've wrote down. Obviously we're going to start with episode 1, which is planning your operations. So everything to do with suppliers, stock, postage, savings, basically creating a business plan before you even do anything. So if you've got your idea, if you're an illustrator, if you're a designer, and you're thinking of doing prints, probably be more beneficial to watch this if you're in that sort of domain anyway. But we're going to talk through the planning that we probably did do to some degree. No.
I can tell you right now, anybody that's watched any of this before or knows any of us, Callie is much more organised than I am. So this is probably going to be a video where I just talk about all of the things I didn't do, but wish that I'd done.
I'm exactly the same.
I think that's why it'll be good, because there'll be 3 perspectives of planning stuff to a degree when we first started, not planning it, what we wish we could have done and should have done if we were to start again. So hopefully people can get some real good value from it, and you know, they can start on their journey as well. So first thing I've got on the list is savings. So if I was to start again, I would start by saving at least £500. Don't know what your perspectives on that would be.
Yeah, I think like I definitely didn't think of that at the start, but there are just like a lot of costs that you don't really take into consideration, and like there's going to be things that we talk about in this episode that are costs related to specific ideas or specific approaches to business, but like, you know, you're obviously going to have to pay out of pocket for stuff beforehand. So if you're setting up a shop and you're selling prints, you know, you don't get the money straight into your bank account, but you're going to have to pay for postage, you're going to have to pay for envelopes, you know, etc., 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 labels, pens, stickers, polybags to put the prints in, card to go behind the prints. You know, there's a lot of costs that you just don't necessarily consider. I think like one of the things that I would say is good to do alongside just having like a fixed amount in your head is, if you've ever bought from a comparable business, think about what your customer experience was. How did it arrive to you? What did it arrive in? What you did or didn't like about that? Was there a little thank you card in there? And then if you list all of those things down, then you can quickly figure out the associated costs with them.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think I would have, if I started again, I'd have a pot of money to dip into just to cover all those types of costs, because like you said, there's so much stuff you don't realise. I mean, even things I hadn't considered, which I added on, was stuff like having a PO box address, because obviously you don't, if people want to send stuff back, you don't want them to send it back to your address. You know, you just want to...
You also just don't want your address to just be out there.
Exactly. So you just want to... Obviously, if you are doing it from home.
so many people have got my old address, and I feel sorry for the guy who lives there now. That's why I moved.
The post office don't do that for free. So that's another cost that's going to cost you. I think they do 6 months and a year minimum. So yeah, stuff like that for sure. I think it's worth having a pot of money. And the other thing I would say as well, starting up, is I think you need to have a good catalogue of work as well. You know, I've seen people start shops where they've got like 2 prints, and I'm not saying that you can't do that, but I just think it's good to have a variety of, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit further down in the channel, in the episode. But I think that, along with having a pot of money to just cover costs, whether you're going to get a printer or not, or whether you're going to, and use printers. If there's going to be cost involved, that's going to come out of your pocket before you start making some money. So I think for sure you need to have a pot of money.
The counterpoint I want to make to that though is a lot of people will be sat here now thinking, well, I don't have a spare few £100 knocking around. Times are really tight, and we've just been through 2 years of COVID, 2+ years, and people didn't have a lot of spare money. And one thing I would say is, like, there are definitely ways that you can try and get around that. So, like, if you don't have the money to set up a PO box, to buy hundreds of envelopes or whatever, there's options where you could do, like, digital sales.
Yeah.
So, like, you sell the design and people print it at home. Like, Etsy, I know for sure has a digital file option.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that position, you can certainly look to do something like that. Because I think that I don't want it to sound as though there's any sort of financial barrier to being able to start up a creative business. But it is if you are going to move into physical sales, or that's what you want to do, then there are certainly, like, associated costs. And it's, I'd rather people consider them than fall afoul of, like, not having the money that they need when they want to set up that business.
Definitely. And we're talking about this from the perspective of what we would do if we could go back. And
of course,
most people have got a full-time job and they're looking to start a shop or a creative endeavour on the side. Not really, unless you're in uni. You're going to just go, I'm going to start a business from scratch. You're going to do it while you're working. So, even if it's £20 a month and you save up for 6 months, it's something. Something
absolutely.
To be, because I've told this story on a podcast before, and I'll tell it again, and it's a good example of why it's important to save. Is that my first sale came when I didn't know what my pricing was. I didn't know how much things would cost. I got the sale, charged £20 for it, and by the time I'd bought enough paper, enough prints, enough postage envelopes, and the postage itself, and the time to go and get it printed and contact all these people, I was down like £26. So I'd lost £6 on my first print. So as happy as I was, and even though I started there and I eventually got more print sales, that first £20 that I made paid for 10 envelopes, and that was pretty much the first bulk order I made, but it was accidental. So I was -6. And if people can just have, even if, like I said, it's £100, that £100 is there to be spent with the view that longer term you're going to make that back. You might not make it back in the first week, you might not make it back in the first month, but if you're not thinking of the steps ahead, it's going to bite you in the arse.
Like, I think one thing that I always do now, is, and I think I would definitely go back and do if I could, is like, if you build up that little pot of money for to run the business, always top that up. So, like, once you've spent that initial capital that you save, like, use your first sales to get back to that level, and always try and keep it there, because there's always going to be things that go wrong. If you're a digital artist, you're always only one turn away from your iPad breaking, or, your laptop needing repairing, and some sort of cost that's going to stop you being able to produce what it is that's making your income. So by keeping that topped up, keeping that little, rainy day fund there, means that you're never going to find yourself in a pit where you can't make more money, which ultimately would be the worst thing for running your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that you have to be prepared. Make sure you prepare everything correctly, because just hearing Kelly's story about his first sale, I think back to my first one. So I'd listed my stuff on Etsy, maybe 5 or 6 items, and I didn't sell anything for months upon months upon months, and you kind of just forget about it almost to a certain extent. I had a printer. I bought a printer, but I'd never used it, so I bought a printer off a friend, so I didn't sort of buy it outright from the shop. So I'd never used it, and then I was on holiday. I got this sale item come through, a notification. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm on holiday. Yeah, what am I going to do? So I mean, to be fair, I did message the lady who ordered it, and I just said, look, I'm away, and I'll sort it out when I get back. And she was very nice about it. I got back, and the printer didn't work.
Oh,
so this printer that I'd ordered, or I say I ordered, I bought off my friend. Actually, I didn't buy it off him. He gave it to me. That's right. He gave it to me. He said it needed some ink. I ordered the ink, just wouldn't work. And that was another 3 or 4 days, and then I just went out and bought a proper printer and then ended up getting it printed and sent out. But yeah, you just need to be prepared. That's my point behind it, was you need to be prepared, because you don't know when their sales will come, and don't sort of be downhearted if you put something up and you haven't got a load of sales. So just make sure everything, like going back to the beginning, if I go back to the beginning, like you said, I'd have a pot of money and I prepare myself and just make sure I know which route I'm going down and have everything I need ready to kind of for when those sales do eventually pick up, because they will eventually. And just make sure that everything is ready to go, because there's no the last thing you want is to have a bad name and you've only just started. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
definitely. I think that you'd only need there's a few key things there, isn't there, that you need to buy.
Yeah.
There's paper, there's packaging, there's postage, Google postage costs for different size prints, frames if you're going to do frame work, what that postage involves on the frame side as well. Prints, if you're getting it printed by a supplier, those are the key costs. I think there's not really listing costs on whatever platform you choose to make your sales on, which again we'll go into more detail in, but I think those are the key costs there. So if you even Google or reach out to people who have already done it, reach out to us, message us if you feel like you need to. We'll tell you what things cost. People message me all the time, how much can you get 100 pieces of A4 paper for, and I'll quite happily send the link, and we'll put the links below. If anyone comments, we'll comment back with links to those resources. Suppliers being one of those, and that's obviously the next thing on the list, is pick your suppliers carefully is something that we've wrote down. And again, it comes from experience of, I didn't do this when I started. Like, I was just ringing around looking for who could print me one Didier Drogba print. That was my first sale. So I was like, who can print one Didier Drogba print? Because I didn't have a printer myself. Rang around a few shops and I was getting quoted like a tenner for one A3 print, and I was like, I only charged them 20 quid, what am I going to do? And if I'd done research into the suppliers, maybe even contacted a few of them, made a few contacts and got a deal in place before I listed anything, then I could have saved myself the stress and the worry that I was going to make no money.
Yeah, I think I was going to just add to that. I think a lot of it's trial and error, though, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Because obviously I didn't go down the route of a supplier. I didn't get it printed from someone. I do all my prints myself, and even to this day I still do all my prints myself and got myself a printer. But on the flip side, I had the same issue to a certain extent with paper, like which is the correct way. What are the correct settings on the printer to get it to look the way you want it to look? And because everything, when you post stuff online and you print it, there's a big difference in the quality of the print, as opposed to, especially the way the colors come out, as opposed to what you see visually on the screen. So there's a lot of stuff like that you need to kind of be aware of, and just, again, if I could go back, I would try all that stuff first. And of course I did test prints and stuff, but you've got to buy the paper first before you can do the test prints. They don't send you here's one sheet. You're going to have to buy a pack of 50, and then if that's not good enough, you've got to buy another pack of 50, or I know some places do 20. And I'll be honest with you, it took me at least 2-3 years to settle on the paper that I use now. And that was just constant trial and error. And obviously, you tend to think that the more you spend, the better the quality, but it's not always necessarily true. It's more of a case of what suits what you're doing, if that makes sense. And a lot of the time I was spending quite a lot of money because I was expecting it to be a high quality print, and although it was a high quality print, it just didn't give that wow factor I wanted. And again, just trial and error and trying loads of different I can't even tell you, I must have tried at least 50-60 different types of paper. And maybe that's my own fault for trying to search for I think sometimes in my head I'm trying to search for that almost exact as you see on the screen. Do you know what I mean? That same sort of wow factor. And I don't think
finish.
you ever... Yeah, that's the word, finish. And I don't think you ever get it. I genuinely don't think you ever get that, just because, you're talking about... you're looking at things in 1080p when you're printing it on a printer. It doesn't transfer across into physical format, but you can get close. And like I said, I think I'm always trying to search for a better look, but I don't actually think it exists, and you just have to settle on what you think is best out of what you've got. And I'm quite happy with the prints I do these days. But going back to what you were saying about picking your suppliers, you just need to make sure you do your research and just try test a load of stuff. And
I think like with anything you do in life, and it especially applies to business, you also have to be ready for things to go wrong, things to be wrong. So I've used a bunch of different print suppliers specifically, one of which I had a really bad experience with. Literally the guy delivered them to my house and handed me these minimalist, very simple prints out of the boot of his car. And so literally a couple months down the line, I'm going to ship this print to a customer, and I'm like, it's got f***ing fluff on it.
Yeah.
From the boot of his car. And I'm like, okay, no.
Or pubes.
Yeah, mate, it could have been pubes, actually. It could have been pubes. So, you have to be ready for stuff to go wrong. I think one of the things that I think it's also really important to weigh up when it comes to suppliers is relationships versus cost. So when it comes to cost, you're never going to get a cheaper price than somewhere that sells, tens of thousands, millions of prints a day online. But you're also not going to get a relationship with that person. So for example, I ordered maybe 100 copies of a print leading up to Christmas in 2020, sorry. And they arrived, and I wasn't happy with how they looked. I'd ordered the same print from the same supplier before, and they turned up, and I was like, these kind of look a bit washed out versus last time. So I emailed the printer, and I'm sure you guys will appreciate, I expected the response to just be them to say, oh, sorry about that, we'll send out some new ones straight away. And instead what I got was, to be honest with you, we are very much like a drag and drop service. We don't check the individual settings of the print, and it really is just a case of variation can occur across printers, and a certain amount of that has to be expected. Whereas I know, having worked with local printers where you literally you phone up, let's call him Bob, you phone up Bob and you say, hi mate, can you turn around some prints for me today? And if it was the same with a local printer, they probably would have reprinted them for me, because that relationship matters to them more. And it's really not to say that in the long run either of those dynamics is better than the other. They both have pros and cons, but again, it's an important thing to think about, but it's not also an important thing to make sure you have both. So another quick anecdote is I had to get an A2 print printed the same day I finished the artwork to ship it to the person that commissioned it the same day. Well, you're not going to get that online. No. But if you ring a local printer up, they'll probably print it for you that afternoon.
Yeah.
So you want to know who those people are. You want to trust them as well.
Good thing about having a local printers or someone you trust is that it might cost a little bit more, but that's that security. There's the security there that you're going to get what you ask for. And I've been using this guy, Viking Print Studios, for years. He doesn't do any of my prints. Obviously, I do them myself, but all my mugs and my t-shirts and jumpers and these hats and he's like a mate to me now. But I like to support him because he's a local, he's a local business, and just like me, he's trying to make his way in the world, and he does everything himself. And I just think that's quite important. And if you get too big, they will get a point where you probably get to a point where local business can't handle what you're asking, so then you have to go bigger. But if you can kind of bring someone up with you on your way to the top, if you ever get there, then I think it's a really important thing. I really do.
The main point to consider is the volume that you're going to order, because when I first started out, I would order 20 to 30 prints of one image. That was just the best thing I'd created to that point, and the newest thing I'd created to that point. And I was like, right, I've done a Steven Gerrard. I think it's really good. I think I might be able to sell 20 of these. And I'd have to get 20 made in bulk. I couldn't just get like 3 because it'd be pointless. It wouldn't be cost efficient. So I'd get 20, but then I'd have to try and market them and sell them. It wasn't until I was about a year and a half down the line that I just decided to stock everything in about 50 prints each. I've still got hundreds in the boxes around me. And it became an overall profit system rather than a per print profit system. Yeah. So, I was hedging my bets by buying all of them. Some would sell 1,000 copies, some would sell 2 copies. Still works that way to this day. So the suppliers is a key in that, because my local printer, the relationship I've got with him, he would print me one-off prints at a really low cost at the start, and that was just from walking in, getting to know them. They were based in Liverpool. They're called Go Create, and if I'd have done it online, I just wouldn't have been able to get that service and that cost and that help at all.
Right. I've got a question for you both now. So in your experience, right, just about suppliers and stuff. So obviously I've only ever printed my prints myself on a printer. And I know that both of you own a printer each. Now, if you were advising someone starting up, would you tell them to get a printer straight off the bat or go to suppliers? And I know there's a cost. Let's just say somebody's they've saved up their £500 to prepare themselves, right? Let's just go off that. Would you advise them to get a printer and do it just per print as and when they go, or do you think it's better to stock some stuff and just hold it? Because I know that the difference in stocking stuff is that you don't have that whole time consuming of sitting there printing, because when you've got to do a lot of prints, it is bloody time consuming. So what would you advise?
Well, I mean, I am an advocate for doing both. Like you said, I own a printer. I started off by ordering stock in bulk, and I still do both. So if I think a design's going to sell well, I'll order 25, 50, 100. I've got a couple of prints that sell pretty well year round. So when I run out of stock, I'll order 100 or so of them in A3 and A4. And when you're ordering at that quantity from a supplier online, you're talking pennies per print. You can get, I think you can get up to like a couple hundred for like 15 quid.
You can.
So that is always going to be a far more, you're going to have a far higher profit margin by going that route. But the reason I got a printer was mainly because I quickly realized, like, when I started my shop, I started with, I think maybe like half a dozen designs, but within a few months it had gotten to like 20, 25 designs. And all of a sudden I went from holding 150 prints to, if I wanted to have stock of every one of those prints that I didn't know how they were going to sell, I had to have like 3,000 prints in my house.
Yeah.
And so it was at that point I went like, if I buy a printer, the main reason I bought a printer was not a cost-cutting exercise. It was to help my creativity, because I'd already gotten to a point where I felt like, do I really want to create new work? Because I can't sell it, because I can't have it in my house.
Yeah.
But with a printer, like I'm more than happy to sit and draw something and create a piece of work that might sell 0, might sell 1. But I know that if somebody wants to pay the money for it, I've got the facility now to just create that one print. And it really isn't that difficult if you put a product up for sale and within a day you get 50 orders. Well, then you order prints and you pay a little bit more for quick delivery.
Yeah.
So I think ideally I would always say to somebody both. But I think for somebody totally starting out, I would probably say buy a printer, because again, like, you want to put yourself in a position where, one, you can learn about printing, Really you need to know what different papers are like, how they react to ink, what different print settings do when you're printing off the work. But also, you don't want to be sat there like I am. Like, literally, I still have prints now that I ordered when I set up my shop, like that I still haven't sold out of. And you don't want to have a few hundred prints in a year and you've sold a few.
Yeah.
Because it will probably make you feel a little bit shit. But if you don't, exactly, if you buy a printer, every time an order comes in, you get to lovingly create that product and send it out. And I think that can be a really positive feeling and help push you on more.
100% buy a printer, because for that, it was just purely for versatility for me. Your first year of doing this is going to be the majority one-off prints.
Yeah.
It's going to be unlikely that you get bulk orders. And the only reason I did it because I didn't have the money for a printer at the time. I didn't save it. And if you want to do bulk orders, do a pre-order. You can be clever about it.
Yeah, that's true.
If you do a pre-order online, you can put 50 up for sale. You can have no stock in the house or no printer in the house, and you can get the orders and tell people that they're going to be shipped within a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, and then you can order the 20 orders in bulk and then ship them yourself. So I would 100% save up, buy a printer, just one, for the satisfaction of creating the product yourself, two, for the versatility of being able to do 10 different pieces of artwork as 10 individual prints to 10 different people. That is going to cost you, if you get 10 bulk orders, a lot more than what it would if you had a printer. They're probably the same amount as buying the printer, but...
Do you guys find that there's a quality difference in between what you get from the printers and what you print yourself?
Yeah, the stuff I print myself is better.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that makes me feel better.
It's like it's not hugely different, but there is a slight difference, and I think that's simply because it's in the same way as saying like what's better, like a craft beer or a San Miguel. Like, there's more individuality put into something that's kind of printed on a one-off basis. And I think like when you take printing to a mass manufacturing level, the quality's still great, but it isn't the same. It's not as rich.
My answer's slightly different. In terms of what's a better product, the prints that I print visually are on high gloss paper, so the colours really splash out the page and are really visually good in the frame and on the print itself. But in terms of, I'm just a sort of bit of a purist in terms of art, so I prefer a matte finish with a shiny print in the middle on a really textured piece of paper, which I just see as a more quality product. So I can't get that myself. I went back and forth with you, Carl. I reached out to you about 18 months ago now to say my printer washed out on matte paper, and I don't know how to fix it. And you just said, just get the gloss paper.
Yeah, you have to, unfortunately.
That made it look amazing, but not feel amazing, if that makes sense.
So I can't remember which way round it is, but the reason for that is the difference between pigment and dye printers.
Yeah.
So on a large scale, I think large scale printers are usually dye based.
Yeah.
So they soak into the paper a lot better.
Yeah.
Whereas pigment based printers typically work a lot better on a gloss where it sits on the top. The other thing for anybody listening to this to consider is matte paper to do properly requires like 4 or 5 times the amount of ink, I think, because it has to lay down so much ink to get those colors right. So again, so that's another thing. Like I have some really beautiful like uncoated or like high quality art papers here, but I literally like can't afford to print my prints on those and sell them because it takes up so much ink and then the paper is so expensive. But I think that's another thing for anybody listening to this to just do some research on it, because different kinds of paper, you might have different kinds of art, then require different kinds of printing. and it has a huge cost implication when we're talking about decent quality printers like any of the mid to high top range Canons. I think we'll maybe include a couple of links to printers that we each own in the description here, but you can't treat them like your your Epson that you printed off your CVs on when you were at college. You have to understand what you're doing, really.
Yeah, definitely. The one downside I would say about printing yourself, and I think this is the difference would be from getting it from printers, is that I've found if you don't put, because obviously I use an inkjet printer, if you don't put the print in a frame, after about 6 months the ink dries out and it starts to look very faded. Yeah. Whereas obviously if you get it from the printers, you can use it like a poster, and you put a poster also. There's been occasions where people have contacted me and said, look, what's happened here? And I'm like, you've got to put it in a frame. If you put it behind the glass, or it doesn't even have to be glass, plastic these days, it will last forever. But as soon as you leave it in the air too long, the colours really start to dry out, and it just looks faded. So that's the only one downside, because that technically that's the reason why when I first started this I called it prints and not posters, because prints should go in a frame. Like photos, you don't necessarily when people take photos of family members and stuff and put them around the house, they don't not put them in a frame. You don't stick them on the wall. I mean you may do, but if you're in uni or something like that, but generally you just put them in a frame, and that's what I tell people to do with the prints, because they'll just dry out if you're using an inkjet printer. So that's something to be aware of if you are going to get a printer, that you make sure that you advise the customers to put the prints in the frame so they last longer.
I think we've sort of covered the next two-ish points there, in terms of where are you going to store your stock? Are you going to hold stock, or are you going to drop ship? Because we've just mentioned then we've all got piles of prints, piles of products in our house, because we've bought stock in bulk initially to hold it and then sell it.
I think drop shipping is definitely something we should discuss, though.
Absolutely.
It's something I suppose we all have varying degrees of experience in. I think I've tried it a few times. I've received products from people that I know was drop shipped, and I'll just be honest, like I don't do it hardly ever. I've done it for a few international orders where shipping just like wipes out any money you're making, but I just don't like the idea of somebody receiving a piece of artwork that I created, but I've never seen the thing that they're receiving.
Yeah. And there's no care into the packaging or anything like that, and it can turn up in any sort of way. Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I kind of always felt that drop shipping is more on a larger scale. Like, you don't want to drop ship just one or two prints. There's been many a times where the postage, well, we can discuss the cost of postage and how it's a robbery at the moment, but there's been many a times where I've basically taken a hit just by posting stuff and for the postage. So, and I don't mind if it's one off here and there, and I'm just grateful that somewhere else in the world my art is on their wall or whatever. But in terms of drop shipping, for me, I just think it's always been more of a kind of something I would consider when it was just too much for me to handle by myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, as an individual, and if you get people in to help you, I guess I'd always get family members in to help me if it gets a lot. But if you get onto a larger scale of things and you want to start doing the Amazon type of thing, I think I think dropshipping is something I'd only ever consider if we ever got to that point.
For anyone who doesn't really know what we're talking about when we see dropshipping, which is possible, you can either hold stock and print it yourself, or get it ordered to your house and then send it yourself. Or there's companies online that you can upload your artwork to. They take the order, they package and post and send the order directly to your consumer or your customer, and then you make less money than you would, but you don't have to do none of the work.
It's effectively that's what Redbubble do, right?
In Redbubble, it's exactly what they do. Yeah.
I think I think it's slightly different with somewhere like Redbubble, because they take the order as well.
Yeah. They do it.
Whereas,
like, start to finish, don't they?
Yeah, there's there's Prodigy and is it Printful are like the two big ones for like the kind of artwork that we produce, and there it's like you still have to take the order through like your website or Etsy, but then Callie's exactly right. It's just like you then just hand the order on to someone else. And I've actually, like, a couple of times printers that I've worked with have offered to do that for me, but again, it wasn't something that I ever really felt like I wanted to do. I didn't want to not be part of that process. So I've always opted to not do it. But I know people also do it for stuff like T-shirts, mugs, for example. I know a bunch of people that drop ship merchandise stuff where then they're not really involved in the manufacturing of it in any way. So I know it definitely has its virtues, but it's just not something I've ever really necessarily wanted to do.
Yeah, it's something I've done and continue to do with T-shirts. And the reasons behind it is because, one, I don't have a T-shirt printer. Two, and this links to the things we've already discussed on this podcast, the suppliers for printing T-shirts in Liverpool and the surrounding areas always see the artwork that I take to them and go, do you want to go into a 50-50 partnership and split the profit? And I'm like, I just want you to print me T-shirts, mate. And I can never find a good one. And three, the profit margin on T-shirts is still big enough to make a decent amount if you drop ship. So, for example, if you sell a print for £10 and you're drop shipping a print, you will probably only make £2 or £3 on that, if that.
Yeah.
Whereas on a T-shirt, you can sell those for 20-25 quid, and you'll still make £7, £8, maybe £9 profit off a drop ship. So if the profit margin is higher, drop shipping is kind of worth it, depending on the product.
Yeah. I've always I'm always the opposite. I've always been completely against doing any of that, just because I can't. Maybe it's me, but I can't bear the thought of basically not giving somebody money for free. But there's almost an element of that for me. Like, I'm like, I can put it in an envelope, I can go to the post office, I could do all of that, and I get more profit margin, for me and for the business. So like T-shirts, I mean, obviously I understand that I don't have a T-shirt printer, so I'd have to get someone to make it for me. And but I'd quite happily just pay the one off. I'd get so I used to do a pre-order thing, especially, and with my mugs as well, to a certain extent, where I knew exactly how many I needed to order, and I'd probably order 5 or 6 more on top just to cover, and then I'd get them sent to me in one bulk, and then I'd post them all out and sort of notify everyone. The time frame, it's going to take a bit longer than 3 to 5 days to turn it around. But I always did that, and sometimes it killed me. It really did kill me. It really drained me, and I had to get family members into it. But it was just, I don't know, it's just something into me. Maybe I'm old school, but I just kind of I felt like I had to do it all because I was giving someone else money for free, which you're not. It doesn't make sense, you're not. But there was just something in me that I'm like, if I can do it, unless it gets to a scale where, like I said, the
purity of it.
Yeah, unless I get to a scale of where I'm selling, 10,000, and obviously you can't do all that kind of stuff yourself, or thousands. It's stupid, but I was just like, I can do this, and I can do it.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just trying to think. Maybe if I could go back in time, would I change it? Maybe, because it does. I mean, ultimately, we're illustrators, and that's our role. And when you end up spending hours packaging stuff and posting it, and by the time you finish that, I don't really want to sit in front of a computer and do anything. I just want to sit down and rest. So maybe I would, if I could do my time again, maybe I would go down that route and just get over my ego of trying to make that little bit more money. But then obviously I'm creating a lot of more time for myself to create more artwork. So maybe I would go down that route. And but I don't know why. It's just something I never really considered, and I don't know why I didn't consider. I just thought that if I can do it, then I'll just do it myself. So
I think that's the thing, isn't it? And I've struggled with the same conversation I've had with people where they say, like, don't waste your time posting stuff. You should be spending your time creating artwork. But I think when it comes to something as personal as a piece of art that you've created, or a product that you've created with your artwork on it, it's not as simple as just saying, separate the time out in your head. It feels like such a personal thing still. So I agree with everything you said, but I think it's never as black and white as we want it to be when it comes to any art business.
That's true.
And that's one of the main things to do when you're planning this at the start. Consider these things you probably never even thought of drop shipping, between stocking and drop shipping, and hopefully it's something you can write down and speak to people about. And the main thing is, you can test different companies that drop ship. Like I I must have spent, and again it links back to the first thing, saving money, I must have spent 50 to 100 quid just when I was considering selling t-shirts, getting test prints, test t-shirts sent to me from, I think I sampled 3 or 4 different companies online, and I eventually found one that was a good quality t-shirt as well as a good quality print and at a good price. Again, I'll put that in the description, the service that I use. So yeah, it's all about that planning. And again, I think we've sort of covered stock, drop shipping there, and posting orders and profit margins. We've sort of covered a lot about all of that. But I wanted to go into a bit more detail on posting the orders and profit margins as well, because again, this is something I did not plan at all. Costs vary in terms of what you're going to post.
Yeah.
So you really badly need to decide what size product you're going to sell, what size print you're going to sell, how you're going to ship that, what packaging you're going to use to post each print, and how much that's going to cost you, how much the drop shipping is going to cost you, because it varies in the drop shipping as well. And that's something that I wish I definitely would have planned, because even to this day I still have problems. Like, you know, someone's recently just ordered, literally yesterday, 6 A1 prints from me, and I even had to ask you two, didn't I?
Yeah.
How do I order 6 A1 prints that are all separate pieces of artwork for the cheapest and the best quality? I've still got to weigh up what I'm doing, the postage cost, the profit margin, and eventually I went back to a local printer, my very first one, Go Create, and they done me a good deal on the prints. I know the quality's good, and I'm going to go and pick them up myself and hand deliver the order. But have you got any experiences on that, of what you need to consider and how it can bite you if you don't?
Yeah, I've got quite a few experiences. So,
fraud.
No, so
you need to consider that too.
So first and foremost, the one thing I think which is slightly different to you, which is a bit odd, because normally you're quite more organised one, but I've only ever sold in A3 and A4 because that's all I know I can print. I have sold in A2, but I made sure I did an order, and like we did, I got them from the printers and I bulk ordered and I had a certain amount, but I've never ordered outside of, I've never sold outside of what I can't print, if that makes sense. And because of that reason, I mean, it's different for you because obviously you've got a local printers that you've used for years, and you've got a good relationship with them, so they can come through for you. For me, I don't, because I do all my prints myself. I can never go to someone and say, can you just give me 6 one-off prints? And it just wouldn't make any sense for me. It cost me too much. In terms of postage, I've had so many different things to try out. So one thing you've got to consider is, so tubes is probably the best way to post prints, I would say. Tubes is the best way to post prints. Saying that, I don't use tubes. But
because it takes f***ing ages.
Well, yes.
It takes so long to put something in
a does.
tube.
It's hard to get the tube.
Absolutely. But I find that the paper doesn't roll properly. Like, the paper I use doesn't take kindly to putting into tubes. So when you've taken it out of the tube, there's almost these little, not creases, but it's not as flush and
smooth.
Going back to what Yoni was saying, the personal touch, and you're giving somebody your art. I want them to get it exactly the way I printed it.
Yeah.
So I now use do not bend envelopes, and do not bend envelopes are crap if you don't put backing card in them. Like I can't understand the point of them. They have the thinnest bit of card in, and if you just use that off the bat, I promise you 50% of your prints will get damaged without doubt, and then you'll end up sending them again. So then you have to kind of put a backing card. So you put your hand up there, Kelly. You're gonna.
I was just gonna say, which relates back to point 1, saving that money.
Yeah, exactly.
The contingency of damaged prints in the post is massive.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that, and then there was a period at the beginning where I was using tissue paper to wrap my prints, and then I obviously, just through experience and ordering stuff myself, found cellophane bags, which are better, much better. But then you get into a territory now with plastic and the use of that in the world we live in, and trying to reduce that, the plastic, the carbon footprint, and the use of plastic in the world. So that's something else I'm trying to consider, and looking at a different option. Maybe I should go back to wrapping it in tissue paper.
You can get hemp covers that are like plastic. That are totally recyclable as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but how much is that going to cost?
It's another cost.
That's the problem. Yeah. That's always the problem
when you're starting up,
like
especially.
Yeah.
I've had a load of experiences. So at the moment, for me, the best way to do it is do not bend envelopes. In my personal opinion, do not bend envelopes. A3 and A4, because that's the only two sizes I send out. Cellophane bag to put the print in, because especially when you're sending international, there's rain, you can get through. It just keeps everything, and then a backing board. Just to give it that extra bit of thing. But I guarantee you, somewhere along the way, someone will bend that print no matter what. There's a million. I'm sure each of you are the same. I've had a million stories where you just think to yourself, how the hell did that print turn up in that condition? But you can't.
Yeah.
You can't know what the postman's going to do. You just hoping that they actually deliver it the way you want them to deliver it. I mean, probably volleying it around in the back of the van and whatever. But
some of mine have looked like the postman has rolled it up, ate it, it out, and then posted it through the door. Honestly,
yeah,
it's mad.
I went on a journey with postage with mine. So where I got to is right next to me on a bunch of different shelves. I've got A4 envelopes, A3 envelopes, both do not bend envelopes, A3 tubes, A2 tubes, and A1 tubes. So where I started was when I started my shop, I actually did only have one product, and it was the one poster in A1 and A2, and I just shipped. Yeah, the one
which
behind
is
me.
still available now at yoni.com.
Fingers crossed there'll be something to go alongside it come the end of the season. Yeah. Who knows?
Please.
Or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But so I was just shipping everything in A1 tubes. If it was A2 or A1, I was just shipping it in A1 tubes, rolled in tissue, all that stuff. What I quickly realised is the difference in postage between an A1 and an A2 tube is like £1.50. So I was wasting £1.50 by shipping an A2 product in an A1 tube. So then all of a sudden I went to A1 and A2 tubes, and then I started selling stuff in A3 and A4. And then I made the same mistake. So I just bought A3 tubes, and I thought I'll ship everything in, if it's A4, I'll still ship it in an A3 tube. Again, just wasting money because it's a different class of postage, which I think is an important thing for you to understand, is what all your different kinds of postage are. If we're just talking domestic, an A4 print is a large letter, but then an A3 print is a small parcel, but then an A2 print is a medium parcel. So you've got all these different categories that you need to get a handle on. And then if you're going to offer different shipping options as well. So I now have, I've got standard, I've got express, I've got tracked or untracked. Typically, most people will go for the cheapest option. But, you always have to keep an eye on that kind of stuff. But I have a rule now where, anything international, I ship in a tube.
Same.
And the reason for that is, going back to what we said at the beginning and what we've been saying all through this, you always need to be ready for what might happen. And you have to expect that probably 1 in 20 prints might arrive damaged, and you're going to have to replace it for free. So you have to factor in that into your profit and loss projections for your business. But you really don't want that to happen with an international order, because I don't mind sending a print that costs a little bit of money in an envelope that costs a little bit of money to another part of the same country that costs me a little bit of money. But if I have to send something to San Francisco and it's costing me 20 quid a go, and that, typically it's I don't know about you guys, I lose money on international shipping. So I charge 18 quid to the US and the rest of the world, but on average it's about 21 quid. And I found that when I put it at 20 quid, it was putting people off. So I set it at 18 and I lose a bit of money on that. So if I have to send a free one to one of those international destinations, that order is literally costing me money, which you really never want to be the case. So that's why I ship everything international, even if it's just an A4 print in a tube. The one thing that I was thinking of when you mentioned your order before, though, Kelly, is it's like I've had sometimes, like, you'll put a sale up, for example, and you'll do a bunch of prints for like £2, and somebody will order like 15. Well, you're only going to charge them postage once.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to have to send that across 2 or 3 different parcels. Because if you're putting it in a tube, well, you're not rolling 15 prints up in the same tube, and you're probably not fitting 15 prints in the same envelope.
It's a great point.
So just all those little things to consider that are gonna come up that you're not gonna realize. You're never gonna think about it.
Yeah.
And you just always need to be ready, essentially, to take the hit. It's like one of the biggest lessons I've learned is you always have to be prepared for things to cost a little bit more money than you expected, to not quite make as much money as you expected. And I think that's an important thing to always bear in mind, especially with postage.
Yeah,
definitely.
The profit margins are so important.
I send all my prints internationally. Signed for international. Just wanted to say that.
Same. I hope none of my international customers are watching this, because even if you don't pay for tracked international shipping, I pay for tracked international shipping, because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get our editor to put that on loop and just put it out as a looped video on Instagram and TikTok.
I don't do the same. Tool. I don't do the same at all.
I send it the cheapest way possible in case it gets lost. But yeah, profit margins is something, again, these themes are recurring, and like you said, you've got to consider the amount that you can get in each tube, the postage, whether you're going to charge postage per item, or you're going to do free postage and higher your price to cover that cost. All of these things you've got to do research, and again, comment on the video below and message us, and find out about what we did. If you've got any questions, we're happy to answer them. Moving on to the last couple of points, we've got how will you sell. Again, this links to drop shipping, holding stock, but specifically, how will you sell, whether it's online or in person?
If you don't mind, I think I feel like maybe we could cover more on profit margin.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so intangible in our kind of work.
Definitely.
So I just want to talk about profit margin a little bit, because as an artist, and especially like as a new artist, you're going to be tempted to just look at how much does it cost me to make the print?
Yeah.
What's my postage cost and what's my packaging cost? And then maybe you'll add a little bit of time on top of that for packaging it up. But what you really have to realise is what people are paying for is your skill.
Yeah.
And that is where it becomes very difficult to figure out, well, how's it fair? Because, realistically, you could, I'm sure we could all make, enough money, profit on selling things at much less. But the market dictates what our artwork is worth. And it's really important to value your talent and skill. So, I think it's, obviously you need to work out how much stuff costs you, because you need to make sure you're making a decent margin. But you've also got to then look at the market, look at people who you maybe think your work is comparable to, or similar products, and kind of price accordingly. I think one rule that I've read, which is supposedly like a bit of a rule of thumb across business, to work out your retail price, you take your cost of goods and you double it, and then you double it again. So the first one would be your wholesale price. So if you ever get into any sort of wholesale deal, you take your cost of goods and you double it, and that should be your wholesale price. And then you double that, and that should be your retail price. So if you do that as kind of a rough approximation and see kind of what ballpark you wind up in, I think that's probably a good place to start.
I've never really strayed too far for A4 and A3 further north of £10 and £20 respectively. What I did plan, one of the things I did plan, is when I do deals, which I do every other month or so on certain prints, what my profit margins are on them as well. So how much can I sell at volume, i.e. if I put a print down to £3 each, what do I make if I sell 10 of them, 20 of them, 30 of them, 40 of them? So just being aware of the profit margins at different prices as well, not just at the price of your best print at selling at its peak. What about at Christmas time? you might get 100 orders at Christmas time. If you do a deal, you might get 200 orders.
Yeah.
Do you want to make the same amount if you sell that volume? You don't, because you put more work into the postage side.
Yeah.
So you want to earn enough with the extra packaging that you're going to do, but also be cheaper than your other prints as well as your competition. And it's just, there's so many levers you have to pull to make sure that the change that's left at the end is worth your time and your effort.
That's where like the whole free shipping versus paid for shipping comes into it, doesn't it? And I know, like, you see memes going out about it, how like, £50 with free shipping is better than $24.99 plus $4.99 shipping, and like it's a psychological thing, which is why, like, personally, like, I have my website set up so that I have a threshold. Like, you get free shipping over £25, because I know that at that volume I can afford to eat the cost on the postage. But if somebody's just buying one print off me and then I still have to pay £3-4 in shipping, then it just drops it down to basically nothing.
When I used to do adverts on Facebook.
Those penis enlargers.
You would know.
Never got my money back on that. It didn't work.
So I used to use adverts on Facebook, and you used to get people commenting on the price of the mugs, and I used to, and the one thing that I always used to say to them is, it's like, yeah, okay, cool, you could get a mug for $6.99 from Sports Direct or wherever else, but you're paying for my artwork. The actual mug itself is just, it's just what houses what I've created. And, I've put a lot of time and effort, and it's kind of, you're not getting this anywhere else. It's not. And yeah, of course, if we get to a point where I'm selling 20,000 a week, then maybe I could get to a point where I could sell it at $6.99
quid each.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, the fact of the matter is, I've put a lot of time and effort into creating this piece of artwork. It's unique. No one else sells it. You don't get it anywhere else. I've created, these pieces, and I think that I should get the right value, what I see as value. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. Like, there's nothing forcing you. And I just think that people shouldn't get put off because big companies sell their mugs or their prints or whatever it is at a lower price, because they can afford to do that because they're selling thousands upon thousands of them. So, they're making huge amounts of profits. So just always value your work was what I was going to say in terms of when you're, selling your stuff. Don't get put off just because you see other big companies selling stuff at a cheaper rate. Just value what you do, and because it's quite unique.
Looking at stuff on a per product basis was really limiting my ability to make money in terms of profit margin and volumes. When I looked at my store as a whole, and I said, look, I've got 100 products here, and my profit will come from all of them rather than just 1, 2, 3 or 4. That's when I started caring less about the losses on some of the stuff I'd ordered. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, they balance them out. They balance it out, don't they?
They balance out, yeah. Like, your profit comes as a collective rather than just on individual prints. And then the prints that are lying around my house, I give them away to people now. I give them away to people, and that in itself is a marketing tool, which leads to more profit and more earnings. So
yeah, definitely. And I think that the other thing is, well, as much as listen, we're all in it here to make money and get your first 1,000 sales as we're going through here. But there's even if you take away all that, even if you take away the money aspect of it, there's something special in the beauty of somebody having your artwork on their wall in their house.
Yeah.
Like, forget the financial side of it, which obviously you need to be doing because you've got to live. Everyone's got to live. But if you could just eradicate that for a moment, there is something beautiful about somebody having your artwork in their house, and then which leads into you giving stuff away. I'd give loads of stuff away because I still get that buzz from knowing that people have got my artwork on their walls. So if you just eradicate, like I said, if you eradicate the financial side from it, that alone there's a beauty to it. So I understand why you give away free bits and pieces.
So I think profit margins will creep up in every point that we make. But just moving slightly on to how will you sell. This again will affect those profit margins and affect your bottom line. Selling online or in person, and what website and locations will you consider? These things again I sort of figured out on the fly.
Yeah.
Etsy and selling online was the main place for me to go when I'd done my research, and the main place to start is Etsy for me, based on it's a platform that people can go on and view your work. It's a marketplace where people can find your work, and you can also sell in multiple products 24/7 in bulk at volume. So online was always the first place for me. Don't know about yourselves.
I don't think there's really anything that kind of compares to Etsy for people starting out, is there? Like, I mean, I guess you could try something like eBay, but it's not. It's not really the same thing. Etsy has that market cornered now for like artisan craft items that people want to buy, and I think, like Callie said, like that way your shop's open 24/7.
Yeah,
and I think that anybody starting out, I would definitely say, look at Etsy. But then, I think as we've all found at different times, like as you grow your own audience, you're probably gonna want to then set up your own shop, because like the Etsy's great, and I wouldn't have a store like I do now if I hadn't started on Etsy. But fucking hell, those fees, like they gouge the out of you.
Yeah, and you're very limited to what you can do in terms of storefront and how you can make it look. Which I found. So I started on Etsy, and Etsy was great because again, people can just find you by searching. They just have to, depending on your products. Obviously, I sell a lot of Liverpool products, so they can just type in Mo Salah, and up through the pages there, your items there. Whereas when you do your own website, you have to constantly be doing adverts, or you have to do paid adverts. And I know you can do paid adverts on Etsy, but there is an element of people can just, if they're scrolling, they can find you. Whereas with your own store, it's a bit different. You'd probably have to do adverts to get, you'd get even more lost in the Google spiel and stuff. So yeah, I think Etsy is a great way to start. You're going to probably, like we said at the beginning, need a little bit of a budget just to cover the costs. If you don't, I was just thinking actually, probably what we haven't covered, if you don't have that kind of budget, Redbubble is probably the one to go for, because they do everything for you. They send it out.
Yeah.
They print it. I mean, I've never used them myself, but I know a couple of people who have. So it might be something people want to look into if they don't have, a pot of money to be able to start up.
If you've got less money.
You can also just go straight into drop shipping, I suppose, can't you?
Yeah.
But again, you'll still need to spend something on getting the test items sent to you.
Yeah, that's true.
Some companies do it for free, but you might spend £100 testing out 3 different print shops, or 3 different platforms.
And Redbubble, I'm pretty sure, is like it's a marketplace, a bit like Etsy, isn't it? So at least you have that kind of.
Yeah, I think so.
You still have that search functionality where people can type in whatever product you might be selling.
Exactly.
Of finding it. But yeah, I would say from my perspective, Etsy is the best. And then as you progress and get better, and if you want to kind of, like I did, wanted to change the way my storefront looked and the discounts and the way I could do things, the way I could offer certain things. So I moved across to Shopify, which again is another great platform to use. But just to, obviously this is about starting out, I would say Etsy, definitely. Etsy is it's just easy. It's just easy. It's simple, really easy to upload stuff, quite straightforward. There's no complication in it. I would say Etsy is probably the best way to do it for sure.
I know we're talking about starting out, but I'd certainly moved over to my own website before I hit 1,000 sales. And one thing that I worked out, and I think so, I'm on Squarespace for my website. It's like my portfolio and shop all in one, and that was the main reason I chose Squarespace, was because I felt like it could do a good job of both. Shopify, from my understanding, if you want a shop, probably is the one to go for. But like I said, I wanted that combined thing. But Squarespace is expensive. So like, I probably spend between 50 and 60 quid a month, including my hosting, any add-ons that I've got on Squarespace, and the Squarespace subscription itself. And that's a lot. I'm not trying to say it's not, but I did the sums before I moved over from primarily selling on Etsy, and just based on like my worst month of selling in the previous 12 months before I moved over, the Etsy fees more than added up to what I would then be paying on Squarespace. So I was actually saving money by spending 60 quid a month, because at least that way I knew it was capped at that amount, whereas Etsy costs more the more you sell.
Did you still keep your Etsy store? Did you completely shut it down?
Yeah, because it's different markets.
Yeah.
So like, nobody is randomly going to find my website.
Yeah.
It's literally going to be people that, I have on email blast or follow me on Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah.
So basically, like, the way I like to think about it is the audience I control, the income I control goes to my website, because that's where I make the most money. But, if somebody's randomly searching for a print for their little brother or their mum or whatever, then it's still on Etsy, because that way I still get that random customer.
Yeah, I kept my stores, but I still do have the store, so...
I created Etsy to start with, and then after I got me 100th order, I realised that it was more cost efficient to use Wix.com, and it was a purely cost basis, because at that point I was gaining momentum. I knew I could sell. You sell 100 of something, you can sell another 100, and it was just when that's when I did sit down, plan the numbers for the next 12 months and go, if I sell another 100, I'm gonna make, I think it worked out like it was 120 quid extra that year.
Yeah.
After fees, because the fees were so low on my own website, and the hosting was just the same price, so I could scale up. So it was purely a cost decision for me. But then when I moved, it was the versatility of the view. I can put a blog on there. I can connect my Instagram. I can send emails out. There's a lot of functions that I still use a lot today, that generate a lot of sales. So start off definitely Etsy. Some places we haven't mentioned now, you can sell directly from your Instagram.
Yeah.
If you've got a Facebook account, you can put your shop directly on your Instagram.
I'm fairly certain so you have to connect Instagram to your Facebook business page, but your Facebook business page then has to link to your website.
Yeah.
You can't buy directly on Facebook. It still has to connect to a third-party shop.
I see.
I think you can in the US. I think in the States you can just sell off Facebook, but I don't think you can over here.
No, yeah. You're right. You are right. Yeah, that's exactly the issue I had with Instagram. Yeah, you have to link it to your shop, and then they've got they have an integration where you can pick one of the stores, and there is a way to do it through Etsy, but it's a bit complicated. It's, normally most of them have got that one click, and you just sets it all up. And I know that Shopify did, but Etsy, when I was trying to do it with Etsy before, it just became a bit of a minefield, so I just left it. But I do have it with Shopify now.
Yeah, but there is plenty of options there to do research on, and I think starting out, I just Etsy for convenience, marketplace, finding being visible to the community, and the fees aren't too bad until you start doing volume.
You just don't want to go through the faff of setting up your own shop only to find that nobody wants to buy your product.
Yeah, exactly.
I it's no slight to say that not everything will sell. Me and Callie have said, we're both still sitting on stock that we ordered when we first set up our stores. You're gonna have products that don't shift. So test the waters on something like Etsy. It costs you in fees, but you don't pay anything up front. It's free to start.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can try it out and see how it goes. We've spoken about having some funds to set up, how you might stock what you need in terms of materials to pack and post and getting your shop up and running online. I feel like, gents, this feels like a pretty good place to wrap up episode 1 of getting your first 1,000 sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I personally think that 2-3 years ago I would have found that super informative. So hopefully anybody starting out on that journey feels the same way. And now that's the end of the main episode, and we're going to spend about 25 minutes trying to get Karl to record a sign-off.
Yeah. Am I doing that right now, yeah?
Do you want us to go on mute, bro?
No, it's fine. I got this, man.
Sam.
Come on, do your sign-off. Do your sign-off then.
That was good, that. I really enjoyed Callie doing that. That was good.
I'm just waiting for it to stop. And just remember, I didn't do any of that while you were doing it.
Go ahead, I won't do anything.
Thanks for watching another episode of... Thanks for watching another episode of Untitled Artwork. Don't forget to like and subscribe.